welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. This episode is part of our Free Expression Friday series, an interview series from ABA's American Booksellers for Free Expression, celebrating the amazing work of booksellers, organizers, and book people in general, fighting for the right to read.
Angie Hayden, thank you so much for joining us to talk about everything that's been going on in Alabama.
Thank you for having me. We are happy to have more light shown on this subject.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about Read Freely Alabama and what Read Freely Alabama's mission is?
Absolutely. So I am in Prattville, Alabama, which is just right outside of Montgomery, central Alabama. And we are kind of ground zero for the book banning efforts here in the state of Alabama. It started last spring. And the group here is really Moms for Liberty by another name. They started out as Clean Up Prattville, and now they're Clean Up Alabama. And it began with one woman here named Hannah Mann Reese, who took 5 books, I believe, at first to the library and then to the city council, demanding that they be moved from the children's section. And they were books like the pronoun book. Interestingly enough, Yes, No, A First Conversation on Consent, that they wanted removed. And I and a couple of other mothers heard that it was going to be going down, and we went to city council and started pushing back against that. And that's kind of how it all started. And just a group of us have come together and formed this little bit of magic here, and it's just really taken off. And now we have chapters all over the state, and we are really, I think, making great strides in protecting our libraries and Alabama's families' freedom to read. And this pushback really against discrimination is what it all boils down to.
And how has the right to read been attacked in Alabama over the past few years? How did it start? You told us a little bit about Clean Up Alabama, but what have they done? Where have they focused?
So they have been following the same template that Moms for Liberty is using elsewhere, except in other states, they have tended to start in school libraries, whereas in Alabama, they have really started with public libraries. Their pattern is to take some books and then insinuate that librarians are grooming, sexualizing children. They will take books that are meant for young adults, or even in some cases here, books from the adult section, and they wave them around and get people riled up and kind of insinuate that they're in the children's section and that this is sexual, as they would call it, pornographic material being handed to children by librarians for the purpose of indoctrination. And we have found that the more we kind of lay out what is actually happening and what is actually true, the more our numbers have grown and the greater our support has grown. And I truly believe that their support is falling away. Unfortunately, they do have kind of the political structure here that is working in their favor. And now that they have moved to the state level and are trying to affect the APLS administrative code, and now there is some legislation that they are trying to push forward. So we're really kind of fighting it at every level.
What else is going on in Alabama right now that you think folks should know about?
I think that people need to know what's happening in their local library. I have learned so much about the library system. I'm not a librarian myself. I'm just a mother. I'm a mother with a gay daughter, an openly gay daughter. And so this really is very personal for me. But, it's really not even just an LGBTQ issue. It's an intellectual freedom issue. It's, I find it so interesting that here in Alabama, where you hear so much talk from politicians about small government and freedom, that this is happening because it seems to run contrary to all of those ideals. So really, I think at your local level, what you can really do is check in with your library. Just ask your librarian how things are going. Are you experiencing any of this? And we have helped set up chapters, Read Freely chapters in other towns and cities all over the state. And that way local people can get plugged in. And when these extremists show up, someone's there to counter it, because I have found that these people are not the majority. They are a very, very loud minority. And so the more voices that we can have on our side pushing back, the better.
So how can folks find out where the nearest Read Freely Alabama chapter is, and what else can they do to get involved with Read Freely Alabama?
We have a website. It's readfreelyalabama.org. And you can send us an email if you have any concerns about what might be happening in your local library. If you would like to know if there's a chapter close to you and how you can get involved. We are also fundraising. Right now in Prattville, things are such that we're having to do a lot of freedom of information requests. And unfortunately, in Alabama, there is no cap on what your local municipality can charge you for those. So it's really a messed up system. So our little grassroots effort just here in Prattville has spent over $500 in FOIA requests. And then, like I said, there's the stamps and the mailing supplies. And for the most part, at the beginning, we were just funding all of this on our own, but now we've kind of swallowed our pride a little bit and started a little a fundraising site so that people can kind of give and help out. And I really think that even more than the money, just your voice is what's most important, because I truly believe that our politicians have this false idea that this is what most Alabamians want. And I have the silver lining of this for me as a fairly progressive girl in Alabama has been that I am not alone in this. We just tend to be very quiet because we all feel like we're all alone in this. And so this library issue is something that kind of spans all political beliefs, except for the extremists, all faith backgrounds. And it's really the best thing about this for me has been how it's brought so many people out and together.
Shifting tack a little bit, are you comfortable talking at all about what made you get involved with
Sure, yeah.
Alabama and sort of what brought you to this fight?
Yes. So I have two daughters. They're grown now, 23 and 26, almost 23. And they grew up in our little library, avid readers, both of them. I have pictures of them at, 9 and 12 years old coming out of the library with books stacked up to their little noses. And to have people look at my children and say that stories about kids like them are inappropriate or dangerous is just something that I can't stand by and watch happen. So that's really... I think the first city council meeting that I went to after Clean Up Alabama spoke, I think the very first words out of my mouth when I stood up is that, I'm Angie Hayden, gave my address and said, I'm here because I want you to know that there's more than one kind of concerned parent in Prattville. And so I didn't know what to expect out of that, but the number of people who have rallied behind us and showed support has been just overwhelmingly encouraging.
Angie Hayden from Read Freely Alabama, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's Philomena. I wanted to give you a quick update since this interview was recorded several months ago in March 2024. In the intervening months, a lot has happened, especially in Prattville, Alabama. Shortly after the interview was recorded, the library director of the Autauga Prattville Public Library was fired after fulfilling a public records request and other instances of him doing his job. 4 library employees were also fired when they locked themselves in the library in protest. Library patrons, Read Freely Alabama, and the Alabama Library Association have since sued the library for overbroad, vague, and discriminatory policies limiting access to books. At the time of recording, the court is considering the library's motion to dismiss the complaint. Finally, earlier this week, the Alabama Public Library Service has approved controversial statewide policies that have been decried by the Alabama Library Association and Read Freely Alabama. The policies lean on vague and overbroad definitions of sexually explicit and inappropriate material, almost certainly inviting the kind of censorship we have seen in the Autauga Prattville Library.
Thank you for listening to the Bookstore Education Podcast, brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!